Yes, indeed. Gird your loins. It's going to be a bumpy ride tonight. I feel it now. Welcome to Off Planet Radio. My name's Randy Maugans, and we are live on Wednesday night, May 9th, 2012. And before I go any further here, I do have a guest with me tonight. Announcement in the final part of this show tonight, whenever that occurs, because time's so fluid here. We are going to have special guests. Duncan O'Finian and Miranda Kelly are going to join me. We're going to do a little bit of an update on the conference we held this weekend. So they will be here in the last hour or the extended portion of the last hour, because, you know, around here minutes and hours can stretch endlessly into eternity. And a couple of things that I got to say. I've been talking to some people that are in my back channel, and I think the word is out that we need to brace ourselves for things that are coming here in the very near future in the United States. I've gotten 3 separate confirmations that something is coming, and whether it's Drake and his planned insurrection, or whether it's something dark, and whether it's something that maybe is not going to be pretty, I don't know. I'm not fear-mongering this. I'm simply saying that I have confirmations, and one of them is from outside the United States, that we should be on red alert through the next couple of weeks in May. And so take that for whatever it's worth. The whole thing with the Drake saga, for me, feels like right now it's time to stop talking, and it's time to simply prepare yourself mentally and spiritually for changes that are coming in this world. And we'll talk more about that in the days and the weeks ahead, I'm sure. I have with me tonight somebody that, wow, how to even bring this? My guest is somebody that's really gotten to be somebody very special to me. She introduced herself a while back to me, and she has been working in the background in ufology. She is, I guess, what you would call a contactee, an abductee. She is the heart and mind behind the UFOchick.com website, and we'll plug that into the chat box at some point for those of you who want to go there. And she's done something very special. Nobody's ever done this before. I just looked, wow, hello and welcome Off-Planet Radio listeners. So UFOchick.com is the website, and my guest is Dana Donlon. Dana, welcome to Off-Planet Radio.
Oh, thank you. I'm really glad to be here. It's a little scary for the first interview, but here we go.
This is your first interview. We're actually really privileged in that respect, that this is the first time that you've done a live audio witness and testimony of what's going on in your life, which is pretty wild. And we've had some conversations about it. I'm really, you know, I got to tell you, Dana, that's impressive that you would put a greeting to the listeners up there. I'm touched by that.
Oh, on the website?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. And so we're going to talk about your journey tonight and some of the things that you've learned, because you've learned a lot. You have a perspective that I think is unique. In a way, your experiences are, and I think I put this when I put the post up on the website, they're terrifying, and yet at the same time they've been part of a discovery process for you as well. You've kind of broken out what I would have to call an ET cosmology, and anybody that looks at this website and goes to the right-hand column, you're going to see signs of interactions with ETs or IDs, which is interdimensionals, and we're going to talk about all that because Dana has a wide variety of experiences. So, Dana, we're going to kind of set the frame here with the chronology of what's been going on. You've obviously been seriously at this since 2009, but your story goes back further.
Yeah, it began in the early 90s. I had had psychic experiences. I've always been an empath, but nothing ET. And I woke up on the table during an egg extraction. And if I hadn't had the people around me in the house verify that something was going on, I might have just thought I was insane. Well, then, one of two things happens when people go through that. Either you dive into everything about it, or you want nothing to do with the topic. And I wanted nothing to do with the topic at all. Then, 2008, as I look back, I have no idea why. I started going to some local MUFON meetings. Very kind woman there said, honey, you're an abductee. You need to get a black light. Well, I resisted that. Finally did. Began finding the markings. And at that point, things began to accelerate. I didn't know at the time that I was one of the rare people that can actually get up in the morning, check themselves, document it, take samples, maybe not have a memory, but go through all that. I figured everyone could. But no, apparently most people cannot. It's like a program that's inserted. Well, apparently this made the interactors, abductors, whatever you want to call them, angry, because the pain and the harassment continued to accelerate the more I documented. Well, I am stubborn, and I had the attitude of screw you. So I kept documenting, and they kept harassing. But as I look back at the years in between the 90s and now, I can tell there were a lot of physical things going on with me that no one could ever explain, that were definitely interdimensional. So then I began to look for other people who were having these experiences. Is your bed moving? Are you waking up with scars? Couldn't find anything. So I thought, all right, I'll start a blog. Maybe people will find me. And they did. I began getting all kinds of emails from people saying, either this happened to me and I don't know what it was, and my reaction was, well, trust yourself. If it happened, it happened. Or I'm terrified and I don't know what to do. So I've been dealing with those, correspondences through the last few years. Came to find out that the harassers were reptilian. Finally woke, basically. I don't know how many of your listeners have astral traveled, but once you've done it, you absolutely know that we are not just a body.
Yes.
And you know that feeling. And we also have, which I didn't know until this experience, an energy body. And I know that some of the religions say there's 7, 10, 11 bodies. Well, I've broken it down to 3. And, I was awakened, or I woke up in my energy body. And this happened multiple times, so I was dealing directly with the reptilian entities. And they were quite brutal. But instead of getting scared, I got mad. And held the righteous anger. And I would start to get depressed, and I would remind myself, depression is anger turned inward.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is these experiences happen to people, and they don't know, there's nothing to be angry at. Being angry at an experience isn't very fulfilling. So it gets internalized. So for those of you who've had experiences and are going into depression, there is something outside of you to be angry at. Don't turn it in on yourself.
Now,
they want you to.
Yeah. At this point, this is very early in your understanding. Let me ask you this, Dana. Do you believe that prior to this experience you may have had previous contacts that maybe you're not aware of or that were screened earlier in life?
I think it's a distinct possibility. I had only one incident as a teenager, and I woke and I was floating above my bed. And all of a sudden there was a huge electrical shock. And I just fell to the bed, and I was about 12, and I went to school and asked all my teachers. No one knew. This was in the early 70s. And then it just kind of stopped from there. I do believe there were a lot of things going on with false pregnancies and fetuses removed in the years between the egg extraction and when I finally figured out what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the reason
in retrospect, you can see.
And the reason I ask you that's because I've interviewed enough female abductees at this point that generally speaking there's an earlier contact that occurs and it's screened or not remembered for many years, and that generally late life contacts are connected to events earlier. I know you said too that you were empathic, that you were very much aware of your own psychic abilities, and again that too is something that's either brought out or enhanced by contacts.
Well, there was a lot of opportunity because I've always been a horse person and was fortunate enough to have my own horse at age 9. So I would take out into the 400 acres for hours on my horse. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was every opportunity for contact to happen. Now, whether it did or not, I don't know. But there was that opportunity.
So your awareness of this was that these were reptilians, not reticulans. I hear somebody in the chat room was talking about that, because we're going to get to that because there are numerous experiences. Can you kind of characterize the difference between the average abduction scenario generally is with grays, so I'm interested in what you can tell me about the reptilians.
The reptilians, I have had one flashback with grays, but I don't know if it was accurate. I don't have anyone else to corroborate. I don't have any physical evidence. I was on a ship, there was blue lighting, and a gray was holding my hand and we were walking up several stairs, and I was not in the least frightened. Mm-hmm. But that's the only, and then the grays that were with the reptilians on the one instance, obviously working for them or being under their control. The reptilians use amazing technology, and they have abilities that are so far out that people who are running the same mind programs can't even make the jump. They have the ability to pull the energy body out of us, use it, manipulate it in their dimension, area, place. I don't know what it is, but it's a specific place. And they use the technology to manipulate their surroundings. So they're very hierarchical. Everything is very military. Everything is very ritualistic. I've seen several different types of reptilian. But they all, I'm not a person that's been involved with military people at all, but they hit me as being, the ranks of military. And I've had people ask me, well, there have to be benevolent reptilians. I don't think so, because the attitudes of these beings are that it's be tough, stay in your rank, or die. There's no tolerance. There's no compassion.
Well, I'm happy to tell you that I have a second witness to that. I interviewed Barry King, who is a very high-profile witness. Barry worked in underground bases at Peacemoor in England. He was part of the UK wing of MK Ultra Montauk project, and Barry detailed his encounter with a reptilian in the base, and his description was very, very close to yours.
Mm-hmm. And they go through, there are a lot of, the thing that really concerns me is I have been getting increasing number of emails from young women who are having their dreamscapes invaded.
Yeah.
wonderful mystery lover shows up and they agree. And then once you make an agreement with these creatures, it's almost impossible to back out from what I've learned. I never made an agreement. So I always was on the, offensive of no. But, yeah, the technology is beyond anything that you can comprehend. I know that they use electricity. They use fracturing on the energy and etheric bodies. I assume that is, I've heard more than just myself say I was strapped into a chair and electrocuted. And isn't that also used for fracturing personalities?
Yes, very much so. That is actually the description that Duncan O'Finian gave of what he was subjected to at 9 years old under MK Ultra to split his personality. Very much, yes.
Yes. Well, I was strapped into a chair. It was a dental chair is what it felt like. It didn't look like one, but kind of that position. Not all the way down, like when you just sit in there before the dentist comes in. Except your legs and your arms are all strapped down and the electricity just starts, pouring through your body. And I think this is normally done without the consciousness. They can pull the energy body and leave the consciousness and the physical body wherever you are. And this doesn't happen just at night.
Right.
This can happen during the day.
Yeah, this is almost a walking out-of-body experience in a way. Is that correct? Describe it. You described it to me in the conversation that we had a few weeks ago, and I'm trying to remember how you described it then, but it was really pretty accurate in terms of what you were experiencing, in terms of feeling like you were being pulled out of your body.
Yes, it's like someone has if you can feel your own aura and your own energy, like when you put your palms together and you can feel the energy. Mm-hmm. It was like a vacuum hose above your head, and you can feel the energy of your body just going straight up into this technology. And for weeks and weeks, and I don't even know how long, I couldn't do anything but lay on a couch, because multiple times a day they would come, take all the energy out, and leave me so sick I couldn't eat. I threw everything up. I couldn't even drink water. I had a headache where you just crawl to the bathroom and are sick. And then instantly you feel it come back and the symptoms relieve. I think if they pull it out for too long, you simply die, is my theory. Mm-hmm. I don't think we can live without that part of us. But, of course, what happens to the energy body happens to the physical body or affects it in a dramatic way. So when they alter our energy bodies, then they're affecting the physical body also. So what happened with me is my stubbornness and my will was so strong, I started bouncing to where my energy body to stop this, to put up a fight. Because your energy body by itself has no will. Your soul is your will. Does that make sense?
No, that makes absolute sense. And the way you described it, like the vacuum hose above your head, was how I remember you described it to me in the conversation we had, which is, it's pretty visual if you can imagine it. And I'm thinking that description, since we have it on the record, will help some other people maybe identify as well what they're going through. Now, visually, can you give me some idea of what you conceive these beings as looking like?
Like I say, they are varied. I saw many more, but I can give you a good description of 3 of them. The first time that I bounced to my energy body, I I was on a bed. There were 2 grays on my left. I was laying down. The grays were holding me, like freezing me. There isn't really a word for it. Well, none of these beings have ever been able to hold me once I wake up. So I broke the hold, and I turned, and there was a reptilian stretched out on the bed beside me and was going to ritually rape me. And at that point, all of the memories came back from when this had happened so many times before. Now, he was laying down. He had 2 arms, 2 legs. I would compare him almost to an extreme bodybuilder build, without the little defined muscles. Much more muscled than your typical human. Broader shoulders, huge thighs. Reminded me kind of almost of a frog leg. They came way out to the sides. Brow ridges, ears that came out like ours but were attached to the head. Like if you put putty underneath our ear and stuck it to our head. The eyes were like any other reptilian. They had a slit. The mouth was wide and was like a frog. It had lips, but they weren't lips. They were just part of the skin. It was gray-green mottled. The scales varied in size depending on what part of the body, but went from, an 1.5 inches to maybe 1/3 to 1/2 inch, like on the lips. Was much smaller. I could not see if he had a tail. I don't think he did. The genitals were similar to a male human. The chest was similar. I didn't see any nipples. The head was what we would consider a very attractive shape. It was very balanced. It wasn't overly big. The neck was extremely thick. The hands had claws on the end. The fingers were wide. The claws came off about 1/2 inch off the fingers. He was not real tall. I'm very tall. I'm about 5'10", and I looked him in the eye when we stood up. That was the first one. The second encounter was with the fracturing. This was a military surrounding. There was the chair. There was an overhead light that was, I couldn't see the source. There was no source to it. The ceiling was simply lit. And I couldn't see beyond maybe 6 or 8 feet. And there was one being to my left, and there were others further back in the room doing something with walls. I assume there were controls on the walls. This one was larger. He had on some kind of a cape. My forehead was strapped down. So all I could do was my eyes. I couldn't turn and look. Similar face, bigger, taller, leaner. Like I said, I don't know if he had a tail. He appeared to have on some kind of clothing, but it was so close to his own color, and it was not bright in the room. So I couldn't tell exactly where the clothing stopped and he started, because quite a bit of this was peripheral vision. He moved more quickly, and it seemed that there was more intelligence to him. The first one seemed, I guess we would call it a little dull-witted. The third one, I read afterwards, apparently was some kind of reptilian royalty. It was after I had been through and thought and woken up and said no, and I had finally realized that they were not going to be able to beat me basically into submitting. And I found myself in a very odd setting it was, again, goes back to the hierarchy thing with these beings. It was almost an old Roman setting. And we were on, I don't remember what they're called, like the bed that's outside with the columns on the corners. Like you can carry, like you have people carry them.
Like a canopy or a pedestal bed?
Kind of, I think they used to call them palanquins, something like that. And it could be carried. And
okay, all right, I got the picture, yeah.
Yeah, and I was lying there talking to him, and I popped in the middle of the conversation, oddly enough, and he was trying to convince me that I could have anything I wanted if I would join with him. Now, he was very large. He was 7.5 feet tall. He was lighter in color. He had a huge, huge tail. He was a beige and white, which I later read is like some kind of royalty. I don't know if that's right or not, but his air was one of someone, he could point his finger in order and anyone around him would do anything. I mean, he would point and snap and people would come running, and he was showing me this, that I could have all of these things if I would just agree, to give over my will to them. And I talked to him for a while, and finally I just laughed and said, as soon as I do that, you're just going to make me one of those slaves. And then he became extremely angry, and I was back home. So those are the three that I have encountered. The ones that were around, there were humans in that scenario. There were humans amongst the reptilians. I have no idea if this was a created, something like a holodeck made with their technology, or if this was a real place where they reside. I don't know. But it was very physical. Wherever these beings reside, they have their own physical world or area that they can manipulate.
So you say there were humans present here. Do you have the sense that these humans were there any uniforms or any way of identifying them, white lab coats, anything like that?
They were all slaves. They were all dressed in similar to togas. It was very odd. And I've never had any interest in Rome or any of that. But I kept thinking, wow, this must be what Rome was like. There were sexual activities going on in one part of it with reptilians and humans. And this was pointed out to me that this was part of the package, anything I wanted, which kind of repulsed me. But yeah, the humans were the lowest of the low in that scenario. And they were frightened out of their minds. And I felt so sad when it was over. For them, for those souls. I hope they were just energy evaluating their souls somewhere else, because it's very, very sad.
Did you have a sense in looking at these humans, did you get a chance to see eyes or anything that indicated maybe their state, their mental state? Were they in a state of trance? Did they seem to be in some way altered in terms of their mental capacity or their ability to function?
No. They were absolutely terrified, and I'm not going to go into details on this one because I'm not comfortable doing so.
No, that's fine.
But the reptilian did call a woman over to me and order her to do something to me sexually, and her eyes were full of terror, absolutely full of terror and repulsion, and I immediately put my hand up and said, no, no, no. And the look of gratefulness in her eyes was something I will never forget. And I wanted to stand up and hold her and take her somewhere safe. It was heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking.
It seems like what you witnessed in that situation was the ultimate outcome maybe of the consent, of giving in, because you've said repeatedly, you're very strong-willed, that you have not given consent to this, that you actively resist the physical, mental, spiritual, and astral things that they're doing to you. So maybe what we can assume from that is that there's kind of like a point of no return once you have given them your permission and your power.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the stages, and this is from my own experience and other people who have corresponded with me, is either they start in the dreamscape, especially with women. They use threats. They use physical torture, trying to get you to say, yes, yes, fine, I'll join with you, just stop. Stop the pain, stop the harassment, stop, I think most people have a point where they'll, they've absolutely had enough, they can't take any more, and they'll say, okay, fine, I give over. And at that point, they become like that poor woman.
So they're basically using degrees of psychological warfare against you from the very beginning.
Yes, and I think when your energy body is pulled out of you, there is an immediate physical reaction. I've had other people tell me the same thing. One described it very aptly. She said, I didn't know whether to crap, throw up, pass out. All I wanted to do was lay down and die. And it happens very, very quickly. All of a sudden you just feel awful. And all you can do is just lay down wherever you are. This woman was actually at a party, at a lawn party, and she just laid down on the grass when it happened. It was so abrupt and so difficult. Usually the person will go to sleep if they can, and when they will wake up when it's over. So yeah, if you have had that experience, that may be what's happening.
Now, you've documented on your website this trend, especially with young, like college-age women, females that are reporting this particular type of activity as well, where they've basically been placed into a situation, maybe a dream state invasion, and the initial overtures are made. Do you have the sense that these beings are either able to shapeshift or present an illusion of something that's less, shall we say, repulsive than the reptilian visage?
Well, I have absolutely no experience whatsoever with physical, 3D, our world reptilians. I don't doubt that they exist. I still don't know. It doesn't make sense to me that the reptilians that I have had interaction with can incarnate on their own into a reptilian body here on Earth, because if they could do that, why would they need to ride along with people or possess people that are here?
Okay.
That's something that's still not clear to me.
Yeah, and that was the chat room was basically, I think, wondering about this as well. We're talking about a phenomenon that's occurring in another dimension. Would that be a fair way to say it, or another space?
Yeah, there is. I don't have a word for it. To name it is to limit it. So I'm hesitant.
Okay.
Dimension is the closest. But to answer your question, yes, what's happening, and I assume that they are using bloodliners. I think probably most of your audience knows what I'm talking about. People from certain DNA groups.
Yes.
That are more compatible with this energy. the women that I have corresponded with have not been promiscuous. They've been rather the opposite, rather the quiet ones, the ones people are not paying a lot of attention to. Mm-hmm. What happens is they have this amazing man, in quotes, show up in their dreamscape. And of course, in the dreamscape, the reptilian would be able to become anything he wanted to, basically.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they have this mystery lover that comes at night that's so amazing, and they begin a relationship with this being. And everything is fine until they realize that they don't want this anymore. And then things begin to change. And the reptilian begins to show what they truly are. I've had women that have had relationships for 5 years or more with these beings in the dream state. And when they try to get out, the physical torture begins. Family members are threatened. It's very, very, very difficult. And I have yet, I'm not to be negative, I'm sure someone has, I have yet to see any of these girls come out the other side of this. They either ended up staying in that relationship to avoid the torture or leaving the matrix. I had one that decided that she didn't want to be here anymore last fall. So, you know, it's a terrible loss. I'm sorry that she's gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with the men, it's a little different. I don't have as much. All I have is what I've read and what I've been told by other researchers on the male side of it. So I can't attest. I haven't talked to the victims on that.
So you tend to think that this is more female-dominated phenomena because of the harvesting of genetic material or eggs? Is that kind of a reasonable assumption?
I don't know, because the beings, I'm still, I know what I saw during the egg harvesting, but it still makes no sense what I saw, the beings that I saw, because I haven't ever heard another report of beings that looked like that, because they looked like human clones. They were very odd.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know. The main, and you don't hear reports of female reptilians, which I find very interesting.
Yeah.
You hear very few reports.
Yeah, that is interesting.
And the male reptilians are after the human females for sadistic and ritualized sexual activity. That's what they want. Now, where the hell the female reptiles are, I don't know. But that seems to be the goal, as far as I can tell.
I have a question from the chat room. Andrew303 asks, has anyone reported to you if they have hurt them during these events with them? Has anyone fought back and won?
Yes, I did. Damn straight. Yes. I have not talked, unfortunately, and I'm not saying I'm the only one. I'm sure there are others. I just haven't gotten the reports of it. When I woke up on the bed with the grays and the reptilian to my right, I knew what was going to happen and basically I just went berserk. I mean, I tried to tear this thing apart with my bare hands. And he was so surprised because this had happened so many times before. And there was no resistance. And there was quite a physical battle. And yes, I slammed him into a wall and hopefully hurt him pretty good. I was trying to tear his eyes out with my hands while saying unbelievably nasty and derogatory things. And I'm not like that in real life. Then I was back. I had been sitting awake reading a book in bed. I was back in bed, and my energy body was still not back in me. And I could feel my energy body still at the location of the reptilian being slammed into a wall head first. And I just sat in bed and laughed. Said, you think you can hurt me? You go ahead. You fill in the blanks with the cuss words and taunts. But, yeah, and after a while it stopped. And I wasn't raped again. I was not raped again. I guess I was considered unreliable at this point and not useful anymore. But yes, I believe once you make that sole decision to overcome the fear, get a hold of righteous anger, and say, no more. Let's just go for it. Things change. Things change. You can change them. You're more powerful than these things are.
Now, these encounters are not the only encounters that you've had. There are other types of encounters that you have had. Can you kind of maybe go into that a little bit more? What occurred after those initial encounters, and maybe take us through what's occurring even today? Well,
I explained about the vacuum and how the energy body is pulled out. Hang on just a second. Well, what was happening was, as I said, they were pulling my energy body out of me, from 1 to 4 times a day for hours at a time. And I tried to fight them. I have a background in energy manipulation, and I would pull back. The vacuum would show up, and I would pull back. I wasn't strong enough. I fought. Day after day after day, for probably a week at least. And finally, one day, I sat down in my living room, and of course, I had been appealing. I've never been a person who felt like anything or anyone was going to save me. I've always been aware that I have a lot of power, and that if there is a God that looks down upon us, He knows what I need. Begging is not going to help. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So periodically, I asked for help. None arrived. Okay, I must have something to learn from this. I just sat down and said, look, if there are any service to other beings out there, I could use some help, because I can't fight this technology. I have neither the tools nor the strength in this situation. I need help. And it was the oddest experience of my life. The vacuum was pulling. I said this right when I felt it start up. And all of a sudden, I was in a long grain again. My nightgown began moving, literally back. Mm-hmm. I was leaning forward in a chair. All of a sudden, there was all this activity at the bottom of my spine. And something was pulling my energy back down. Then it would go up a foot above my head. It would get pulled back down. It was like there was a tug of war going on. It was very, very bizarre. And I just sat there perfectly still, thought, well, okay, the help is here. You're just going to sit and see what happens. And it was 20, 30 minutes. It was a long time this went on. And it kept slipping upwards. Whatever the benevolent beings that were trying to help me was doing was not effective. And suddenly, their energy is like the pressure in a balloon without the balloon there. It's like a pressure you just run into. It's hard to explain. This pressure went around my neck like an inner tube about 5.5 inches around. It was round, tight around my neck. And it stopped the upward flow of energy from my body from going up. Well, the vacuum continued to pull on my head. Then all the activity stopped from what I would call the benevolence. And for the next 3 days, I could feel this caller. And of course, at this point, I was extremely grateful for the caller.
Mm-hmm.
I could actually function and eat, and but the vacuum never stopped. My face swelled like I had been hit, like I had been beaten without the bruising. My neck swelled. I had a really bad headache, and it simply stopped the technology. It stopped the technology from removing my energy body ever again. I don't know if the collar is still there. I don't know if I've gotten so used to it that I don't feel it anymore. I think there still may be something there. And that's when I realized that there were other beings who do listen and watch. And of course, I was very wary. At this point, I was wary of everything. But, well, is this a trick, to get me to cooperate? You become very distrustful.
Yeah, absolutely.
When these things happen.
Yeah.
And over the next, 2.5 years, just in the last 4 or 5 months have I begun to have a little bit of trust of the benevolent beings around me. I think a lot of people, probably most of your listeners, have these beings around them. The thing is, what does a truly benevolent being, in quotes, look like? They can't do anything that invades upon our free will. So, unless you ask, they can't help you.
Yeah, this is key. We talked about this, and this goes into as well some of the conversations that you and I have had about free will and our ability to resist and our ability to regain our own power. It seems like the benevolence help at the point where our strength begins to fail, and also at the point where we actually ask for help.
Yeah, one of the most interesting things that happened to me was all of a sudden, out of the blue, it occurred to me one day, I bet I have energy implants. And when you're talking, my experience has been, when you are talking to benevolent interdimensional beings, you must be very, very specific. Because if you say, can you remove anything in my body that's bad? Not specific enough. Can you remove any implants, energy implants? Well, from which body? So I sat down and I thought it out, and I thought, okay, I want all of the implants and anything that's been put into my body by service to others or service to self-beings removed. So that's what I requested in very specific terms, and I felt them remove them. It feels like, I think most people at some point in their life have been shocked, like if you're rewiring a lamp or have gotten a little jolt of electricity.
Oh, yeah. I've done that many times to myself, yeah.
Okay, well, a few minutes after, it still tingles.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It doesn't hurt, it just tingles. That's what the touch feels like. That's what their touch feels like. And I could feel them moving around. I could feel the electricity in certain areas. I could feel all the stuff being removed. And I get a lot of reports of people saying, oh my gosh, my cover's moved, or I felt something touch me, and they're all terrified. Well, don't be terrified. Try to figure out what it is. Talk to it. See what happens. I ended up with communication because I'm so stubborn, and for 3 weeks I demanded it day and night. Day and night. Are you there? Touch me. Are you there? Touch me. And finally, they began to.
You know, I have to say, the last almost hour that you and I have been talking, you've described some things that frankly frighten me. And to survive what you've experienced and to be able to cognitively get to a place where you fought as much as you can fight and you actually begin to ask for help, to me sounds like an incredible act of bravery, because it sounds like a lot of people gave in. It sounds like we've lost souls on this planet to this type of attack. And I'm not blowing smoke here. I'm actually just sitting here, I'm stunned at what you've described and the way you've resisted and the way that you've sort of worked through a strategy to survive this. It feels like you've had help from the beginning. That's kind of what I'm sensing.
It didn't feel like it
No.
for quite a while, but you're probably right. I think the other problem that so many people have written me saying, how do I get contact? How do I get contact? Well, you have to stop. Now, this is my opinion. You have to stop idolizing these beings.
Yes.
They are no better than you are. Because if you idolize them, that interferes with your free will. So they're not going to communicate with you.
This is a huge, huge distinction you're making. Absolutely.
And I see, and I'm not trying to criticize channels or people that write things, but I cringe when I see, oh yes, I'm channeling an ascended master.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, an ascended master is, if they're telling you what's going to happen and they're telling you what you should be doing, they're interfering with your free will, and they're not an ascended master. Because you have to be so specific when dealing with these beings, because they just won't cooperate. And it's like the future. You know, I've gotten very, very few answers about the future, because the future is all probable. We create the future.
Yeah.
Humans do. You know, and people say, oh, well, you know, this person, they predicted such and such, and it didn't happen. Well, that may have been one probable future that was probably going to happen, but people on Earth decided it wasn't. So it changed.
And this goes into the idea that we've been talking about of not idolizing and not making yourself less than. It seems like you have this rare ability to understand who you are. And this goes into a big conversation that I've had with a lot of people for a long time about what we call taking back your power, knowing who you are and understanding that when you worship something like these beings or you channel, you have created something that's greater than yourself. And in a sense, you've then made yourself less than, and you have become a slave to that which you have now placed above yourself.
Yes. And like I keep saying, a true service to others being will not violate your free will. They won't tell you what to do. I mean, even by just saying this is going to happen, you're changing that person's life.
Yes. Yes. Because
and that includes their free will.
This is a difficult concept for some people, that we are co-creators of reality. It's called taking responsibility for your reality and understanding that even though on one level horrible things have happened and you did not consent to that, you take responsibility for it in order to empower yourself to resist it. It's a tough concept, isn't it?
It is, and it's something, it's odd. I've always had that sense. I mean, I remember in grade school and junior high, girls are just brutal. Oh, I have such ugly feet. I never thought my feet were ugly. I thought that was stupid. How can my feet be ugly? I'm perfect. But you say that, and people think that you're the most egotistical bitch that ever walked the earth. But that's how we should be. We should see ourselves as incredible, beautiful, powerful beings. We all are.
See, aside from the fact that, you've given an absolutely fascinating interview so far, this was one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to have you on tonight. This goes beyond abduction. It goes beyond ET experience. It goes beyond the paranormal. What you're describing now is actually a complete philosophy for empowerment. And I think this is so important, and especially given where we're at right now in time. And given the fact that we're going through a lot of changes in the planet, a lot of changes in consciousness, and that there seems to be a higher level of accountability on human beings to begin to become creators, to begin taking responsibility for their reality. See, this is the part that really pisses me off about New Agers, is they're sitting around waiting for this wave of ascension to come in, and it's all going to be la-la and everything's going to be good, and they don't seem to realize that any changes that are going to come about either on the planet or within themselves are going to come because they've struggled, because they've endured, and because they understand who they are.
Absolutely. And I see people finding truths in other people's, I keep saying channeling, because most people present their material, wherever it comes from, as a channel, because it's accepted now.
Oh, no, we've got a whole culture right now on the internet that's built around the daily channels from the galactic councils or the ascended masters or the angels, or pick one. And this is going on for years, and people just eat this stuff up. It's like, wow, the future is going to be better any minute now. And I can't believe people sit around for years reading blogs that put this shit out and don't realize that you're being lulled into complacency. While the world goes to hell, you're going to sit there and believe that something higher than yourself is capable of making something better. I think I did this. I think I did this rant before, but it's okay. It needs repeating.
Well, the thing is, and what they're doing, whether they mean to or not, the people who are putting out the material, is they're putting everything on hold. Because if the consensus of humanity on Earth says, whether it's Jesus, whether it's the Galactic Federation, whether it's whoever is going to come and save us, that means we wait. It's kept everybody in a holding pattern. And a holding pattern is not going to change things. What we need to do is we need to concentrate on truth coming to the surface. Truth from every avenue. Truth from your kids, truth from your spouse, truth from the military. And the other thing that people don't realize, which most people are going to deny is possible because it's scary as shit, excuse my mouth, is many, many people's thoughts are being monitored.
Yeah.
I know mine are because I've had reactions to them instantaneously. Imagine if every thought you have is being monitored. How would your thinking patterns change? And the funny thing about mine is I have had to completely stop thinking in questions, which is damn hard to do. Because if I ask a question, they answer me, which is very disconcerting. So, yeah, it's about throwing off the old programs and changing them and turning them off and stop being this weak little thing that hopes everything's going to turn out okay, and realizing how amazing you are and everyone else is. And I think my other big bitch is in so many people that are, what's evolved isn't the word, aware of the things that are going on, are so irritated all the time. Well, I go to the store and everybody's a zombie. Well, wake them up. Say hello. Connect your energy. Look them in the eyes and wake them up.
I love it. I love it. I have some questions.
I mean, there's a sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. Actually, you know what? I want to take a break here. I want to give you a chance to take a break and get something to drink or just catch your breath a little bit. And when we come back, I got a couple of questions here, and we'll hit that. But I think this is a real good place to take a break. In answer to questions, Duncan and Miranda will be joining us. Like I said, the hour floats. We'll go with this conversation for as long as we need to. And Duncan and Miranda had actually planned to come in shortly after we end the normal broadcast tonight. So, yes, Duncan and Miranda will be here later. So, just hang out for a while. So, I'm going to take us out of this break with some music, and we'll come back on the other side. We're going to continue to talk more about a most fascinating subject, not being a victim. Wow, what a concept. With my guest, Dana Donlon, here on Off Planet Radio. We will be right back. Indeed, Off Planet Radio. This is hour number 2 of the live show on May the 9th, 2012. I'm Randy Maugans. My guest is Dana Donlon. She is the UFO Chick. That's UFOchick.com. And an incredible first hour we had. If you don't catch that there's a bit of an attitude here, I think what we're looking at goes beyond the abduction phenomena or the the paranormal into an area of human behavior that's not really discussed very often anywhere, much less on a paranormal show. And it has to do with what happens when you're empowered, when you take back your power, when you just say no, hell no, and begin to refuse to cooperate with dark entities. Dana, welcome back to the second hour.
Thank you, dear.
Great first hour, by the way. I like it. I like it a lot. Wow. I sat here, I was so blown away and just kind of listening to you tell these stories, and these are not casual events or happenings. This is not part of the lunchtime conversation or something over the water cooler. This is kind of you being really raw with us. And yet you did it with so much grace. I have some questions. Let's see, I got one right now that I want to ask you. Okay, question. Darn it, my box flipped here. Okay. When an earthbound human and an extra-dimensional, extraterrestrial communicate in a co-creative process, is the nature of free will shared during the communication experience?
Well, to part of that, I don't know. To the other part, in my situation, I only get yes and no answers. So it's very hard for them to violate my free will because they're not giving me information. They're not telling me what to do. On the other hand, it's very limiting. I would be wary of co-creation with an interdimensional being who is very free with information, because that information is a form of a violation of your free will, whether you believe it or not. We live within a certain matrix, and when something comes from outside that matrix, you're going to change, it's going to change your behavior, whether you want it to or not. And that in itself is a violation. Hope you got that.
I did. I got that, yeah. Because what you
now,
said...
with a physical ET,
okay,
I don't know. I mean, they are within our matrix. So I can't answer that. I haven't dealt with that. I haven't even really thought that through.
And I think that's an important distinction, that we're dealing with beings that are extra-dimensional. And go ahead.
The reason I use interdimensional, I know it's not the quote-unquote correct term. Extra-dimensional infers, again, that they are more. They have extra. They're extra-dimensional.
I like it.
We're all interdimensional creatures. They can move into dimensions. Think of a table. Okay, a flat table. Put a piece of paper on the table. Make that piece of paper a two-dimensional galaxy. Okay, we as three-dimensional beings can look at it. We could look into it. We could even take tiny tools and interact down there within their dimension. But for us to enter their dimension would be extremely difficult. And that's kind of how I see it. The interdimensional beings can enter ours. They're in their dimensions. But they, as far as you see the flashes of light, you see the flashes, you see the things out of the corner of your eye, something can be moved, something can appear, you have all of these circumstances in which you can say, yes, something has been altered in a way that I cannot comprehend. Very well could be an interdimensional situation.
Okay, other question I have, Do you consider that the benevolent beings may be multidimensional versions of ourselves?
Absolutely possible. Absolutely. I don't know what they are. And to define them until we have absolute proof of what they are limits them. So, yeah, sure, that's a possibility.
Now, I want to take this in a slightly different direction in that you obviously don't live alone, and this clearly is an experience that's has gone on for a long time. It impacts your daily life. It impacts your ability sometimes to function. How does that play into your daily routine?
Well, I've been married 27 years. My husband didn't ask for any of this, bless his heart. He has adapted as well as he could. He's very kind about it all. Most of the time, I forget that the benevolence are around. If I have a question, I'll ask it, I'll get an answer. They touch me and I can feel the electricity. I actually would have thought I had completely lost my mind, except for other people who have experienced. I have asked them to interact with others to confirm what I am feeling, and they have done so. So other people have experienced their touch and acknowledged, yes, it's very real. Like I said, I think a lot of people, they're just waiting for those people to understand that they are there to help and to interact with them. But we're taught to react with fear. So look at the media.
Yeah.
The covers, it's a demon. I mean, everything that happens, it's in a scary movie. So you have to wipe that fear program out. And trust yourself. That's the biggest thing. I have more people write to me and say, years ago this happened. What do you think it was? And it just was like, well, you know it happened. You experienced it. So trust yourself. You shouldn't need me to validate that for you. Oh. Programs are so strong. We can't trust ourselves enough to say, yes, it happened. It may not make sense, but it happened. I have had bizarre things happen to me that make no sense whatsoever, but they happened. So I'm going to trust myself and go from there.
So the idea of external validation doesn't really play into your universe a whole lot. That's not why you do what you do, but you are, in a sense, reaching out to other people, and I'm sensing that a lot of what you get are people that are, shall we just say, freaked out by what they've experienced.
Yeah, very, very freaked out. And again, program. We're programmed. If something happens we don't understand, we react with fear. Stop, reset. If whatever it is that has created that situation we're going to do, it probably harmed you. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
Yep. Now, on your site, you have on the right-hand column, and I know some of the people have commented in the chat room that they're now fans of your site, so I guess you'll get another bump in traffic. Signs of interaction with ETs and IDs, and you list some of the different, phenomena that people would experience. We didn't really talk a lot about negative grays, and I don't know how much experience you've had with them, but let's go into a broader spectrum here of physical abuse, implants, signs of things that have been taken off of your body or put into your body and screen memories?
Well, common implant seems to be in the sinus, and it seems to appear over the side, almost to the end of your eyebrow and straight up. And I call it a point of source headache. It's that kind of an implant. Now, in my experience, benevolence also can use this implant. However, if you say, this hurts, would you move it? They will immediately move it. There are so many different signs. You know, I think a lot of people that are going to doctors now are actually feeling the effects of interdimensional contact of some kind. Mm-hmm. And the doctors don't know what it is, so they give you an antidepressant. Yeah, the implant, I mean, I had huge scar appear on my stomach. I've had scar completely disappear off of me overnight. The only physical evidence I've seen that was not on or within a person's body was a writing left on a window, which was really interesting. And the gentleman didn't know what it was and wrote me, and I have an Indian shaman friend who can read the gray language. And she translated it as believe, which was kind of interesting. Yeah, there are all kinds of... There are implants in the physical body, and there are implants in the energy body. In my experience, the benevolent interdimensionals actually will do energy work on us that helps us raise vibration. I don't know what's coming, but I know that energy has intensified and more people are being affected, which tells me that we're coming up to some kind of a peak because no intelligent, sentient life form does something with no purpose to it whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Go there. What you think is occurring.
So it's hard to feel. They probably removed. Oh God, I never tried to put a number on it. 12 to 20 energy implants on me when I finally requested it. Mm-hmm. To anyone that has or thinks that they have one, just sit down and write it out and be real specific and ask if they're any service to others beings to remove them. See what happens. And if you feel them working, don't freak out. Just be glad.
Now, how are you aware of implants in the energy body? What is the indicator to that?
You know, a lot of them I didn't know were there. Like I say, headaches, you'll be able to point to the exact spot where something hurts. I think that's the biggest indicator. You know, if someone has a headache and they say it hurts right here, that's the point of the beginning of pain is at the size of the end of your finger. I would say that's probably an implant in the cheek, in the forehead, in the nasal cavity.
Base of the neck?
Yeah, it could be in the neck, but it's there. You'll be able to point well to it, in my experience. Just, it hurts right here, and it radiates out. For those that have the black light, now don't buy a black light bulb, that will... It has the black light like majors use to put over black light posters.
Right, yeah. A fluorescent,
they're like $10.
Fluorescent black light. Yeah.
Yes. You will see a white, your skin will be white around your nostrils. if they've been putting implants in and out of your nasal cavities, it won't glow, but it will just be like a complete absence of blood under that black light.
Mm-hmm.
That's another indicator. The other thing that I learned was that many times, it took me a lot to catch this, if you get a blinding headache and have to go to bed, many times the nasty ones, I assume the grays, they'll actually be doing, how do I put this tactfully, vaginal sexual work on the person. The headache is a destructor.
Mm-hmm.
You have such a blinding headache that you don't feel anything else. So that you'll hold still for the procedure. Now, the torsion, I don't know if anybody has read up on torsion field technology. There used to be quite a bit about it, and a bunch of it's gone. I was doing some research the other day, and a bunch of it has disappeared. That's where there's an energy field, and within that energy field, time speeds up or slows down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's how they manage to give us the stars overnight, heal things overnight, do things very quickly, work on us while we're walking, because they've slowed down time for them.
Okay, this is the freakiest part of all, and you and I have talked about this. This feeling like time is slowing down. And I told you I had an experience this weekend at in a public place where I had this exact experience. And how to explain that in a way that is understandable to somebody that's not experienced this. The idea that time slows down or distorts or even speeds up.
Well, you can probably explain it better than I can, because with me it's been more of just a missing time. I mean, 1 second you're standing here and instantaneously you're standing somewhere else, and you can tell time's passed because you poured a drink or taken out the trash, or, I have some of those actually described in my blog posts that have happened to me, and it does leave you feeling very, very odd. The one time that I did see the being that was working on me, it was a very tall gray, and it was female. And I had decided, again, using will, we create, I wanted to see who was working on me. And I woke up, and I stayed in that half-groggy state, and I looked up, and there she was, and her hands were moving so fast, and they disappeared into my stomach. And they were moving just so fast with a blur. And of course, at that point, I yell, "Holy shit, you're real!" and she disappears. It was kind of funny, actually. But, so that's when I became interested in the torsion field technology, because obviously she was moving so much faster than anything that could happen.
Explain a little bit about the torsion fields in terms of how you understand it, because you're right. This is something that doesn't get talked about a lot, and it is suppressed technology, basically. I mean, that's why the pages are disappearing. That's why there are scientists out there. A friend of mine's been talking to me about a guy named Marco Rodin, and this actually goes into his work as well. How do you understand that, and how do you understand that playing into the phenomena that we're talking about?
Well, I think when they do, I know when they do physical work on us, not energy work, but physical work.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I believe that all groups have this technology. I don't think it's limited to negatives or positives, to use the shortcuts.
No, I think it's part of the universal force, actually. I think that's what's been suppressed.
Yes. And it was like the morning that I woke up with a scar that was almost 3 inches around and 1.5 inches deep. right above a very, very, very skimpy bikini would be on the left side.
Mm-hmm.
And all I remember was feeling like someone was poking me with a stick in the night, and I kept itching at it. The other way that you can tell sometimes if are working on you physically using torsion field technology is, let's say you have a sudden pain in half of your leg, okay? Take your hand, make it flat, and cup it a little bit, and bring it in slowly and push on the air and bring it down slowly towards your leg until you push on your leg. If it increases the pain, something's going on. Because the energy, I mean, we're actually in all dimensions. We just don't realize it. We're actually interfering with what they're doing. We're pushing the needle in further. We're interrupting them. So we're going to feel a little bit of pain there many times.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they can put a field as small or as large as they need to. Speed time up. I don't even know how fast they can go. And do surgery on you. You know, in 2 or 3 minutes, and it's all healed up with the same time as their days have passed. That's how they wake up with scars. It's exactly with time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a common...
It's not some light.
It's a common occurrence with abductees and people that are in contact that they notice that wounds heal very fast. In other words, you may... scoop marks are very common among gray abductions, and these are very deep... what they say, scoop marks, they're gouges into the dermis and epidermis, and yet they seem to have the ability to heal within a number of hours.
Yes, and what's interesting is the gigantic, you can put your finger into the muscle in my stomach, that scar, and within 6 months it's gone. Which I think is very interesting. Now, the scoop scars on my arm that are photographed on the blog, they've come back 3 times and used the same place.
And again, I want to
which I find very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. And, you know, let me say this. On your site, you've documented it extremely well. This is meticulously done. This is really rare that somebody documents their encounters as they're going. That's why this is so credible and why it's such an important website, because Dana has documented as she's gone along. She's used blacklight technology, photography. She's gotten up and she's measured distances and really done first-class work in terms of documenting what is occurring on a regular basis. And this is I can't believe your website isn't like one of the major UFO websites out there, because there just is not enough of this kind of journeyman work that you're doing in terms of documenting things.
Yeah, and I had so many physical samples that I sent off to a quote-unquote expert who I've never heard from again.
Yeah.
I'm getting beeping. Are you getting beeping?
We're getting all kinds of stuff. The Skype's breaking up occasionally, too, yeah.
Okay, well, if I disappear, you got my other line. That's odd.
Yeah, Dave's at the ready there to do that, yeah.
Well, yeah, like I said, I didn't realize that most people can't get up and document everything. I didn't. But I think when nobody tells you you can't do it, sometimes you can't. Basically. But, yeah, I had all kinds of actual skin samples and scrapings and all kinds of things. So, I don't understand. I'm not being unsympathetic. It's hard for me to understand someone couldn't get up and check themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's a program that's inserted into us by the grays.
I have a question.
It didn't work on me.
Pardon me for interrupting. Would like to have your chat room again, Dana. Just your chat. What's your website again, Dana?
Oh, UFOchick.com.
Yeah, I forget that the chat room...
really easy.
Yeah, the chat room rolls up. I put a link in early in the show, but as it's scrolling and people are feeding into it, it rolls off the screen and they can't see it. Thanks, Dave.
But yeah, the torsion field technology explains the healings. It explains the work that can be done so fast. It explains...
You still there? Okay, I think we lost her, Dave. Did I lose you too? And maybe what we'll do here is so Dana can kind of wrap up her evening. Dana, is there anything else we didn't cover or anything that you want to go out saying tonight so I can kind of have some kind of closure on this interview?
Yes, I think the big thing I really want to tell everyone is to trust yourself. Trust your memories, trust your experiences, be aware of what programs are limiting you, and know that you're amazing. Those things will change everything, absolutely everything in your life.
And that really is the takeaway, isn't it? That's what we've been talking about tonight. If you don't get into any of the other woo-woo stuff, if you can't relate, if some of this was really tough, if this was a tough interview to hear, walk away with that because it's a life lesson, and it's one we all really frickin' need to learn right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I want to thank you for being an amazing guest. Again, the website is ufochick.com. That's ufochick.com. Go there. You're going to spend a lot of time there. We didn't even scratch the surface on this interview, and you will be coming back. You'll hear from me soon on that, and I will also get you in touch with Duncan and Miranda as well to talk with them. So thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for sharing your experience with us here for the first time ever. That's amazing.
Oh, well, thank you, and I will talk to you soon.
You will talk to me very soon. I will catch up with you in the next day or two, my dear.
Okay, sounds good. Have a lovely evening.
You too. Good night, Dan. This is Off Planet Radio.